I'm Joe Inman, this is Cote, and we're here today to talk about the Putnam hardware wagon that was recently restored for our museum. So in 2016, Albert Putnam of Holton donated the wagon to the museum, and as you will see in some pictures that we'll have later on, the wagon was in really tough shape. In 1904, my grandfather and Al's grandfather, Fred Putnam, bought part ownership of the Turney hardware store in downtown Holton, and 4 years later his brother Arthur Putnam joined the ownership of the store. Mr. Turney died around 1908, and so the two Putnam brothers had sole ownership of the store. The store became known as Putnam Brothers Hardware. Shortly after they took ownership of the store, they also got the franchise for Gulf oil products for all of Aroostook County and part of New Brunswick. And as a matter of fact, they were the first, they put the first gasoline pump in Aroostook County. And that was located in front of their store in Market Square. The store is what if you're my age, remember as the Chain Apparel, and it's now H&R Block in Market Square. My other part of the story, moving on. During the restoration, we were lucky to find on the wagon, underneath all the dirt, a plaque that said Silas Tabor. And so the wagon was made by Silas Tabor. There are actually two plaques, one here and one in back. Mr. Tabor was known throughout the area for the quality of the wagons, buggies, and horse-drawn pumps, sleighs. And he made hundreds of them. He was located on Mechanic Street, and he employed quite a few people. And I think the building would be across from McPartland's, down a little on the left-hand side. Eventually, I think Hawkins Blacksmith store shop was right there. Mm-hmm. So the Board of Trustees, once they received this as a gift, had a decision to make whether to leave the wagon in the original condition or to restore it. And so the decision was made to restore it, and we were very fortunate to have Cote, who did 99% of the restoration. Funding for the restoration was mainly through the Putnam Charitable Trust, so we were lucky to have funding to do this. It cost, we had to send the wheels to Pennsylvania to be done because they were the ones that had the largest board.
Yeah, some of the spokes were missing, and they were pretty well gone. The wheels were still round, but they were close to collapsing when we got it. When I first saw it, it was in a Beretta house, and Francis took me down to take a look at it. I looked at it, and it was pretty bad. I took a few pictures and thought, well, something I can do, but it's going to take a while to do it. And it did. I worked on it for about a year, and all the wood has been replaced except these two pieces under the seat. I had to leave some original, and that was the best two pieces I could find. Other than that, it went right down to pieces. And it was here in the barn, and I'd come down and work on it. All the metal was taken right down to the metal, and just I covered with a little oil to keep it from rusting. And I guess once they painted, once it dried, it was really pretty good. It took paint well, and it was a good project for me. The springs were the biggest challenge. They come apart in pieces naturally, and they were pretty well rusted. And I think I used like 12 wire brushes and wore them out doing that. And had a little help from my brother-in-law putting the wheels back on. And at one point, when they came back from Pennsylvania, we put them on, and the car was sort of tilting, And we looked at it and come to find out the rear wheels are 2 inches bigger than the front ones. Once we changed them around, it rolls real easy. You just push it and the wheels are well lubricated. It was just a good challenge for me. I enjoyed it.
When Dee had the springs taken apart, he noticed some writing on one of the leaves, and the name of the foundry that made the springs was stamped on the leaf of the spring.
Yeah.
And Dee's wife looked it up, and they're still in business in New York.
In New York.
In New York State.
Yeah. They make springs now for automobiles. They've been in business over 100 years.
So Dee is very modest. We were unbelievably fortunate to have Dee with his talents to do this. I'd come up quite often to check on what was going on, and he had it either up in his shop up the road or here. He'd have hundreds of pieces laid out on the floor here. It was amazing to see.
I took a lot of pictures to make sure I put it back the right way.
But just a work of art. And we have other people to thank too who were involved in the
I had a few
restoration.
people help me take it apart and actually lift it up to put the wheels on. So we did have some help.
Larry McCarthy did the signs on the side and donated that to us. Jamie Watson helped me with the painting of the whole wagon. And then we had other people who donated money so that we could pay for this. But it's a part of Holton's history, and we didn't say, but this is how they delivered throughout the Holton area from Putnam Hardware. So you can imagine a horse-drawn wagon pulling up through Market Square. Now this is the time when we're basically transitioning from horse-drawn to gasoline engines. We have a picture of the hardware store down in the square with dozens of horse-drawn wagons and one car. And so this is what was going on during the period. Putnam Brothers owned the hardware store from 1904, and the last date that I could find listed was about 1925, and I think they eventually moved over beyond where Volumes bookstore is, over in there. And then they built the big Gulf empire that they had for northern Maine. But they got their beginnings with this wagon and with the hardware store. So.
All the wood on the wagon was bought naturally by the museum, and it's all oak. It's all white oak, and it was nice to work with. The only thing that's not oak are these two, I don't know what you call them, they go out the hook onto the horse, and there were just two little pieces, stubs, when I got the wagon. So I had to almost guess as to how to do it. So what you see is what I made.
We saved a couple original parts, the sideboards here. If you visit the museum, you can see them hopefully hanging on the wall before too long. Also, Dee happens to have a forge, and so we were lucky to have a person who could fabricate some of the metal things that we had to do or do repair work.
Yeah, there were a few pieces I had to weld, and other than that, yeah, had a little here and there.
So when we first got the wagon, it was really in bad shape, and it was filled with powder post beetle holes. If there was one, there was 100,000 on this wagon.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't been for that, we probably wouldn't have had to restore the wagon. We could have saved it, but it was beyond saving. Because
most of the wood was really, really bad.
So this came as a surprise to me. Al was my cousin, and I had no idea he had saved this wagon. And he apparently had it in one of his barns out behind his house. And then the next thing I know, look in the Pioneer Times, and here's a picture of my grandfather's wagon and his grandfather's wagon being donated to the museum.
Nice piece of history. Come up, and all you do is push it, and it's locked. Isn't that great?
Snaps right in.
Snaps right in. To hold whatever you put on it, if you put a big load on it.
You can, from the original, you can see this is really well used because the wood was worn right down. So you know a lot of lumber.
A lot of the metal was worn too inside.
Yeah.
New ones. These four are replacement. You can tell the old ones, they're a little pitted.
Right,
Yeah, but these rails are all original.